everybody. It is Ariella from Pop Entertainment, and today we are here with Mackenzie Lansing from the show Mare of Easttown on HBO Max. Mackenzie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you for joining us. So, Mackenzie, for those who are less familiar with the show, how would you describe the series to our viewers?
So, Mare of Easttown is about a murder that happens in small town Easttown, Pennsylvania, and Mayor Sheehan, who is played by Kate Winslet, is investigating this murder. And everybody in the community knows each other. It's a small town, so that plays into a lot of what's going on.
Yes, I do like to say that it is a very good show. I have started it and I'm hooked. I've been binging. It's insane. And you're an amazing actress as well. I'd like to compliment you on your job in that show. So I did do a little research and I see that you had an interesting upbringing in like the Congo and Paris. So do you feel that like having such a continental lifestyle growing up kind of opened you up to acting and like the arts?
Yeah, I mean, not so much because my family were not in the arts in any way, shape, or form, but I think that when you're forced to move around a lot, you kind of become a chameleon and you have to adapt to different situations very quickly and size up where you are and who the people are. So you kind of get in the habit of watching people. And so I think that's probably part of where it comes from for sure.
Was French your first language or English?
I am actually one of those weird people who learned them exactly at the same time. And because there was equal amount of input, English and French, I speak them the same.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had no problem like learning, American slang and accents and stuff like when you're acting and stuff.
Yeah, no, I do think I have a little bit more of a facility with European accents because I'm used to hearing them more. So this was definitely a challenge for me, but I love dialects and accents. So I was very excited to get to do the Delco accent because it's so specific and such a hard accent to do.
Well, yeah, that actually opens up for another question that we had. In an interview with Kate Winslet, she said that like out of all the accents she's had to learn, the Delco Chester County accent was like one of the hardest. So how did you, deal with that experience and like what did you do to learn?
Well, I really like phonetics, so I work a lot with that. Also just listening to bits of recording, and even when we were in Pennsylvania, like trying to overhear conversations, make notes and things like that, because it is such a specific accent where there are certain sounds that are, I would say more or less universal, and there are others that are, specific even to the town within the Delaware
Yeah.
County area. So it becomes very sort of meticulous work where you can actually kind of pick like, okay, what sound changes is my character going to make? But luckily we also had someone on set to help us, our wonderful dialect coach.
Oh, you had a dialect. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
and she's from that area. So for her, it was, even more, I think, of like a personal Suzanne Shelby. Shout out to her. She was amazing. But yeah.
So actually, we're a company from the Philadelphia area, just a little bit further up north than Chester County.
hmm
So what was it like for you working in the area, and did you learn anything interesting about Pennsylvania?
Oh yeah, I actually loved PA because I come from a town in France that's sort of, it still has like a big city feel. Like there's, lots of public transportation and stuff, but it's got kind of a roughness to it.
Yeah.
And French people are very rough around the edges, but once you get to know them, they're super loyal. And that was my impression of, people from PA.
Sounds
And
like
so I
PA.
connected with, I just honestly, I had never been, I haven't been to that many places in the US because I moved here straight from France. But PA was the place where I felt the most at home out of anywhere I've been in the US so far.
Love that. Love to hear that. Yes. We're home for everyone. We're home for
Yeah.
everyone.
People, they're great. The people there are great.
Did you move to the States for acting and arts?
Yeah, originally I was very purist. I was like, I'm gonna go back to France. I'm not gonna stay here. And New York did its thing, and I ended up
Yes, New York
staying.
will get you. New York will get you every
Yeah,
time.
it will. I mean, I'd still love to go back to do some film, but I mean, it's my home now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved here to go to acting school, and got stuck in a good way.
So yeah, I mean, you're obviously much nicer than the character you have to play. But are there any ways that you feel like maybe you can relate to Brianna?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's sort of a delicate one, but absolutely. Well, when I was really young, I was bullied. and catfished almost in a very similar situation to Aaron. So I do relate to that. But then also when I got older, when I was like 16 or 17, so actually closer to Brianna's age, I wasn't a bully, but I did get into fights. I was very rambunctious. I was kind of a loudmouth and stuff, and kind of as a reaction to myself being bullied as a kid. So yeah, I actually did relate to her and her anger, and, you know, just when you feel like you're stuck somewhere and you take it out on other people. Not to the extent that she does, but I did relate to some of those, you know, that angst that she has.
Yeah, that's deep. That's really very interesting. Well, what was it like playing such an, you know, unlikable character in a sense? Not to crap on your character a little bit.
No, oh my gosh, it's fine. I can say it now, I'm done. But I think, you know, when you're working on a character like that, you, to make them unlikable, to make them real, you actually have to find a way in where you, while you're playing the character, completely justify why they're doing what they're doing. Where you're like, oh, to me in my head in this moment, this makes perfect sense to beat up this girl, to stick up for myself because I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of my crew. Like, there's all these things that you have to craft around, you know, even why she hates Aaron so much. Like, what about Aaron reminds her of her own weaker parts, which I think that's really what it is Aaron is like her without this toughness that she's been forced on her by her father. And she hates seeing that vulnerability in other people.
I love hearing you talk about the show like this while I'm watching it too, because I'm like, this is very much like doing therapy on the characters is very interesting.
Well, you have to when you're doing it.
Yeah. So what parts of her character would you say maybe the hardest for you to connect with?
I think that as much as I relate to being an angry teenager, I don't relate to the popularity that Brianna has. And that ego is something that I had to find a way. It comes from the same place, right? It's still insecurity. It's just manifesting in a different way. But that was a bit trickier for me, was slipping into the shoes of someone who, you know, would also go that far as to beat someone up in front of a group of people. There was some work that had to be done there, and really justifying what it is that I think that Aaron could have possibly done to me to make me feel like I have a right to do this in that moment anyway.
Right. So yeah, not to spoil anything for our viewers who haven't yet watched, but speaking of that fight scene, which was insane, I have to know, like, what type of preparation went into that?
A lot. You know, Kaylee, who plays Erin, is an amazing actress, and she's so sweet, and we had really good conversations while we were on set about safety. We obviously had fight choreographers there, and we had a lot of the people who you kind of see in the background are actually stunt people.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so like when I push her around the circle and stuff, they're kind of there to, you know, look like they're beating her up, but really catch her and make sure that nothing happens to her. So yeah, we had great fight choreography, but I think also with me and Kaylee, there was just an understanding of like, you know, I'm in it when I'm doing it, but when we call cut, I was very careful to be like, are you all right? Are you good? Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looked very real. You guys pulled it off amazingly. So again, not to spoil too much, but Brianna was arrested in front of her family at some point in time in the series. Was that a fun scene to play with, it being such like an awkward moment? You know, getting arrested in front of your parents doesn't sound like a very comfortable situation. How did you tap into that?
I mean, you know, I think that when you're an actor, there's this kind of sick thing where like the worst scenes are the most fun to play because you're like, yeah, I want to go there. I want to humiliate me in front of my family. Let's do this. But no, it was a tricky scene because that, you know, when you are shooting a TV show, scenes like that have a lot of action and overlap are always take a little bit more rehearsal. But Kate is amazing, and she's really good at relieving tension with jokes and stuff. And also like improving, like when she escorts me outside the last door and I kick it open with my foot, we curse at each other. Like that was completely improvised.
Wow.
Yes, it was in that moment as Brianna, I was completely humiliated and pissed off, but was it fun to play and to do? Absolutely.
So speaking of Miss Kate Winslet, what was it like working with such reputable actors like Kate Winslet, Evan Peters?
I mean, it was amazing. I try to approach it as like, these are just people that I'm meeting for the first time and kind of forget anything I know about them to have, you know, a real experience with someone rather than like fangirling all over them. But Kate, especially, I was able to tell her that her part in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is what made me want to be an actor. Like when we wrapped, we had a moment where I like cried and told her, I was like, oh, you're the reason that I wanted to do this. And she was super sweet and like hugged me and stuff. But it was amazing. It's like it's a masterclass in acting to be around someone like that and to just even see what they're like on set, you know?
Like coming full circle for you. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
So what was it like for you being a part of such a complicated, complex mystery? Like, did you find yourself getting invested in the story as you were going
Oh
along?
yeah. Oh yeah. It very much so. Like at a certain point when they would give me the next episode of the script, you know, even if it was an episode that I wasn't heavily featured in, I was reading the whole thing. Just really wanted to know what happened to all the characters. I was very much invested. Absolutely. And they didn't give us, a lot of us, the last episode till much later, and some people didn't get it at all. So some of people still don't know who the murderer is who are actually on the show. So a lot of people were like, while we were on set, we were like doing what everybody's doing now, which is like exchanging our theories and things, you know?
That's fun. This is a little off topic from the show, a little more of a fun question. If you could work with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh, that's such a tough question. I've said this before, but Frances McDormand, Saoirse Ronan, Leisha Haley, Samira Wiley.
Okay, so Mare of Easttown is actually the second HBO series you've appeared in.
Yeah.
You're on The Deuce, a couple
Mhm.
episodes of The Deuce. How was that role for you? How did that come about? What was it like being on the show?
It was amazing. I mean, my role actually was only supposed to be much smaller, and then they had me, based on what me and Maggie were doing, we improvised some lines, and they ended up writing in a longer scene, and then they actually made my character recurring, where I came back for a couple of episodes, but that wasn't actually how it was scripted originally. And I think part of it is because it was such a powerful scene where, like, for people who know The Deuce, it is the first scene that I'm in playing Jamie is where you finally discover Candy's backstory. Because we kind of follow Candy, played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, for the whole show, and we don't know much about where she comes from. And so that's the scene where she opens up through telling this actress like how to prepare for this role. She's actually talking about herself and what happened to her. And it's a very emotional scene. And I was not introduced to Maggie before we started doing it. So to come into that, and she was already prepped and ready to go. And like, I just met Maggie Gyllenhaal, and she's holding me by my shoulders and crying in my face. I was like, oh my God. But it was really incredible.
It's on HBO Max as well, right?
I believe so, yeah. It's a good show, but Maggie Gyllenhaal herself says that you can watch the episodes sporadically because each episode is like an hour and something long, so it's almost like individual movies. I mean, it still follows like a trail, but you know, you can watch them as separate pieces as well, according to her. Yeah, exactly.
So Mare of Easttown has been released as a limited series, but everyone's dying for more. Do you think there's a chance for a second season, maybe?
I don't know. If there was one, I would be game. I know that right now we are a mini series, but you never know.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And last little fun question for you. Working in Pennsylvania, I know you said you loved it. I've seen in the series Wawa being featured quite a few times. Did you find a love for Wawa?
Oh yeah.
What's your go-to Wawa order?
How can you not? I feel like I should say Philly cheesesteak, but it was like those like make your own bowl situations where you can like, do a whole combination and you can like punch it in on the machine and then it's just like ready at the end. Yes. I love Wawa.
Yes, everyone loves Wawa. Yeah, well, is there anything else for the viewers that you'd like to say before we?
Thanks for following the show. If you're not, you should check it out. If not, follow me on Twitter. I respond to mean and nice tweets at Mackenzie Lansing. And if not, on Instagram, Mackenzie Lansing, so just my first and last name.
Okay, well, fingers are crossed on this end for another season. We're excited to talk to you again in the future. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And everyone, make sure you tune in to HBO Max. Watch Mare of Easttown. It's a great series.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you.